Coming up right now on the John Fredericks Show, Bobby Scott. That's right, Congressman Bobby Scott, Democrat, 3rd District of Virginia. Congressman Scott, great to have you with us.
John, good to be with you again, and thank you for stopping by my office when you're in D.C.
We love to stop by your office. You guys are so good to me there, I have to say. David Daly, your Chief Communications Director, and your staff.
He got a promotion. He's Legislative Director now.
You finally gave him a promotion.
Yep.
Good job.
All right.
He's a good guy. Okay, we've been lobbying for him for some time, but you guys are always so good to me when I come up there. We appreciate you. Now, let's get to the repeal of the so-called death tax. When I was in your office, you had voted no when you were railing against it. You were pretty animated. Why?
Not railing against it, explaining. See, part of the problem we have with our budget is people don't make choices. $269 billion tax deduction. I mean, reduce taxes, $269 billion. Well, everybody likes to reduce taxes, but it's not in any context. I mean, the question you pose is, how would you like to reduce taxes? Well, okay, I think I will, but you don't. What are you going to cut to pay for it? What spending are you going to cut, or what other person's taxes are you going to increase? $269 billion. That's almost $1,000 for every man, woman, and child. You got it right. It's only 0.2% of people that die have more than husband and wife have more than $10 million in assets. That's when you start paying the tax. $10 million. If you got less than that under present law, there's no tax. $269 billion. I was at a rally the other day of transportation and business officials encouraging more investment in transportation. They were hoping to get 50 or $60 billion more a year in transportation, because the budget that passed the House essentially zeroed out any new projects. Zero. Okay, well, we can't get to that. We can't find money for that because we just spent $269 billion in repealing taxes. Now, people talk about little family farms. I mean, you talk about a little patch of land. You said $10 million. That's when you start paying tax. Under that, you don't. The Republican budget that passed cut Pell Grants, increased the interest on student loans, no transportation, the lowest discretionary spending. If you go back to the lowest discretionary spending as a percentage of GDP in the last 50 years, that budget was 40% below that. And now you're going to add on to that another couple of $100 billion in spending cuts or just deficit. But let's make the choices. If you cut the cost of living and Social Security, like people are talking about, called the chain CPI, but just cut the cost of living, you'd get $125 billion over 10 years. This was $269 billion. So let's save the richest 2%, 0.2%, less than 1%. Of dead multimillionaires. Let's help them with their tax problems and pay for it by whacking everybody's Social Security.
But, Congressman Scott, what about the fact that Republicans are saying, look, this is a 3-time tax. They've already paid income taxes to acquire the land. Then they probably paid capital gains taxes if they sold any of it. Now they're paying a third tax. I mean, is that fair?
Okay, fine. Then how are you going to pay for repealing it? I mean, you people talk about, is it a good tax or bad? All taxes are bad. Nobody likes to pay taxes. How are you going to pay for it? And then you have your equities. You're going to you're going to cut everybody's Social Security, raise the age of Medicare to 65, 66, 67. You're going to increase interest on student loans. You're going to raise everybody's taxes $1,000. So that this handful can get better, can get tax relief because they had more than $10 million in assets. If you put that money in a jobs bill, According to some estimates, you could get a job for everybody that's officially unemployed today. Everybody. You could end unemployment.
So I guess,
or you could help the tax problems of 1/5 of 1% of the richest dead multimillionaires in the country. Okay, that's a choice. You're going to have a transportation plan. Actually, if you had a good jobs bill, more people would have to pay the estate tax because everybody's stocks would be going up. 99% of the people with estates over $10 million, it's not the little family farm or closely held business. It's people with stocks and bonds, cash in the bank. That's where the overwhelming portion of the 0.2%. Virtually nobody. We asked somebody. When they talking about it before. We asked somebody to find us a family farm that had to be sold because of the estate tax. And I think they're still looking. That was about 10 years ago. They haven't found one. I mean, theoretically, that may be true, but it's a $10 million farm. And if you want to protect yourself, you can buy insurance. So when the time comes, if insurance will pay the estate tax, and there's no problem. But what are your choices? What you're talking about it in the abstract, like you don't have to pay for it. And that's the problem. That's how we got in the ditch in the budget before. People doing all these tax cuts, doing all this additional spending, going to war, not paying for it, and then wondering where all the money. Why you don't have any money for transportation?
Well, look,
it's arithmetic.
On the war, you were right. We're on the same page on that. I was adamantly opposed to the George Bush tax cuts. As you know, go to war that you don't need and then cut taxes and then have a prescription drug benefit on top of it without thinking you're not going to bankrupt the USA. So we're on the same pay on that. But I just had your colleague.
And when Bush started, he was looking at a projected budget that would pay off all government bonds by 2008 and put all the money back into trust funds by 2013. But he, like you said, fought 2 wars without paying for it, tax cuts without paying for it, prescriptive drug benefit without paying for it, and now we're in the ditch. People said, well, the budget deficit is too much of a problem. No, it isn't. We had it solved. Chairman Greenspan was answering questions in 2001. Are we paying off the national debt too quickly? What's going to happen when there are no government bonds? I mean, those are the questions he was answering in 2001. Then we went to the 2 tax cuts, 2 wars, and a prescriptive drug benefit, and lo and behold, no choices are being made. How do you like a tax cut? How would you like a prescriptive drug benefit? No, and this is how we're going to pay for it. The Affordable Care Act, the choice was, how would you like an Affordable Care Act, and here's how we're going to pay for it, and it's paid for. And if you don't want to pay for it, you don't get it. That's how you're supposed to budget. Not how would you like to repeal the estate tax, spend $269 billion, and not a peep about how to pay for it.
All right, well, how about the fact we just had your colleague on, Congressman Griffith from the 9th District, and he said, look, this is destroying family farms, and it's playing into this corporate farmland thing that we have. And how do you respond to that?
Name one. How many people lost a family farm because of the estate tax? Name. You could literally name them. I doubt if there's. You'd be hard pressed to find one, and you'd be hard pressed to find one in Virginia. But okay. And what you're going to do is you're going to raise everybody's tax in Virginia $1,000.
Right.
Over 10 years, $10 a month. Every month, $10 a month. Everybody, man, woman, and child, in order to protect one person who's got more than $10 million in assets. And it's just not one family farm. It's people with stocks, bonds, and everything else. And if we put the money in a jobs bill, more people would get rich because their stocks would go up.
Well, wait a minute. We already had a jobs bill. We already had all that stimulus spending, Congressman Scott, and that went nowhere. How can you possibly argue for additional stimulus spending when it went nowhere?
You're kidding. We haven't had a jobs bill in 7 years. I mean, the stimulus was about 7 years ago, and we haven't had one since. And if you look, when the stimulus bill passed, we were losing about 3, 4, 5, 6, 700,000, 800,000 jobs a month, losing. And if you look at the graph, we went from the day the stimulus bill passed, we started losing fewer and fewer jobs, and in a couple of months, we were starting gaining jobs, and we've had a more sustained consecutive months of job growth, more than in the history of the United States since they've been measuring. More over 200,000 in a longer run of over 200,000 since Clinton was in office. I just declare that it didn't work. You must not have seen the graph that shows a total collapse of the economy, the stock market going totally in the ditch, and almost from the day the stimulus passed, there's been an improvement. And to say that just declare it didn't work, I mean, I don't. You just can't declare that. You have to look at the graph. It did work, and we haven't had one since. We'd be even better off if instead of 260, we still got too many people unemployed. Let's use 200. Let's spend $269 billion to hire everybody that's presently drawing unemployment. And according to some reports, that's just about what you could do. You could create enough jobs to give everybody a job.
Well,
and all those people with $10 million.
That's a feasible argument.
They would have $20 million.
That's a feasible argument.
Under Obama, the stock market has doubled. When they paid slightly lower taxes under when Bush cut all those taxes, the stock market after 8 years was worse at the end than it was at the beginning. Worst job performance under Bush in recent history.
Well, look, we can agree on that, Congressman Scott. I think.
Well, I mean, if you say it's not going to work, let's use some numbers. Best job performance, then much better than Bush. Stock market clearly better. And if you invest like that, more people will have to pay their state tax because more people will be getting rich.
As you know, I was opposed to NAFT. I can't even stand calling it by its acronym. I think it hurt U.S. workers. Now we've got this Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, Congressman, that is going to include governments like Vietnam who are paying their workers 17 cents an hour. How does this make any sense for American workers that are trying to make ends meet?
I think you'd be hard-pressed to show how any of these trade deals have helped the American workers. Right. I mean, if you just look, I mean, theoretically, they might help for the economy generally. You might show here and there that they've been some benefit, but they might help big business. But in terms of workers, they've all been a total disaster.
Too
many people. I mean, all of them. And so, if you're looking out for the workers, these things just haven't worked. The labor standards aren't enforced. The environmental standards aren't enforced. But I mean, if you just go back one at a time, you just see that they do nothing to help the workers. They may help a few businesses, but if you're looking out for the workers, they're just a bad idea.
They help the biggest companies and the globalists. They depress wages for middle-of-the-road U.S. workers. And those of us on the Republican side that was opposed to that NAFTA trade deal, we were right. There was only a handful of us railing against it at the time. If you look at the facts now for the U.S. worker, NAFTA has been a total disaster. So now we're looking at the same thing with this Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. How do we stop it?
Each member of Congress has a vote. They're still putting it together, so we don't know what the final deal will look like. So when they come up with what we're going to vote on, it's going to be a fast track. You get an up or down vote. And I just can't imagine them putting anything together that I would be able to support.
All right, so as it stands now, if that were to come up today, who would be no, right?
Well, I can't imagine them putting anything together. I can't. It's a little awkward to say how you're going to vote before you've seen what you're voting on.
All right, I've got about 2 minutes. Lindsey Graham yesterday came out on Fox News Sunday, and Congressman Scott said there's not a snowball's chance in hell for the Iranian deal getting through the U.S. Congress. How do you stand on this? Well,
we don't know what the deal is. I mean, a lot of people are rooting against the deal, and you wonder, well, what are they for? A deal may not be ironclad and may not solve all the problems of the world, but it is clearly a good deal. Is clearly head and shoulders above everything else on the table. If we don't have a deal, Iran will definitely get a bomb, because we have no inspections, you have no oversight, you have no sanctions. If people think that the other countries around the world who've been supporting our sanction are going to watch us walk away because of congressional dysfunction, they're not going to support any sanctions. So you don't have any sanctions. So this thing is a deal, ironclad and the best thing. No, it'll have some problems, but compared to what? You're not going to have sanctions. They say, well, go back to the sanctions. They're not going to be there because other countries are going to start making money on us. I mean, you look at Cuba. That worked great for 50 years. The other countries are not going to support the sanctions. Now, where are you? You got no inspections. You have no oversight. You don't have anything. Now, we may not be able to get to a deal that's acceptable. That's possible, but at least you ought to try. And you get a lot of people who look like they're cheering against any deal, without any idea of what they're going to put in it. What happens if the negotiations fall apart? There's no discussion about that. Why
not just keep doing the economic sanctions? We had starving them to death.
Because the United States sanctions aren't enough. You need everybody else in the world doing sanctions too, and they're not going to support us if they watch us walk away because a bunch of U.S. senators running for president and a bunch of politicians get into dysfunction. They're not going to support us. I mean, we're negotiating with Iran. We're also got to negotiate with the P5, saying, no, we'll stick with us on this. We're working hard for a deal, and they've stuck with us. You start walking away because of congressional politics, and they say, well, we were making progress on a deal, and you guys walked away, and then we say, well, help us on the sanction. So no, we're going to make some profits on this thing. Y'all lose all your business deals. We're going to make some money.
All right, Sarah, we're out of time. We want to thank Congressman Bobby Scott for being with us. Congressman, it's always an honor to have you on, and we appreciate your forthrightness and candor. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Congressman Bobby Scott.